My name is Gregory Lane. I'm 54 years old, with 29 years in sales under my belt, and a reputation built on one simple truth: people do business with people they trust. Until recently, I was Director of Strategic Accounts at Surge Materials, a B2B supplier specializing in eco-safe composites for commercial construction. For 12 years, I wasn't just running sales, I was the backbone of every deal that mattered. $20 million in client revenue annually, with over 65% coming from relationships I had personally developed, nurtured, and protected. I knew the project managers' spouses' names the last time their teams had changed, contractors, their pain points before they turned into delays. I had lunch with clients not to pitch, but to listen. That's how you last in this game. Then came Mira Prescott. She arrived 6 months ago as the new VP of Growth Strategy post-acquisition, fresh out of Silicon Valley buzzwords dripping off her every sentence: scalability, automation, alignment. I saw the writing on the wall from her second all-hands meeting. She didn't want sales reps. She wanted data points. "Legacy culture is holding us back," she said, pacing the stage like she was delivering a TED Talk. "This is about agility. It's not personal." But it was personal the day she called me into a meeting HR present and said, "We've evaluated your role and you're just not aligned with where the company's going." I didn't argue. I stood, shook her hand, and said only, "Thank you for your time." Her face fell. She expected a fight, maybe begging. I gave her silence. I packed my office quietly, took my mug a photo of my wife and our son on his graduation day, and the framed letter of thanks from Elkbrook Construction, one of our oldest and largest clients. I didn't need much. Everything that really mattered was in my phone's contact list and in their trust. I didn't even tell my wife right away. I just drove home, made coffee, and stared out the back window. It wasn't anger I felt. Not really. It was calculation. Because Mira hadn't just fired me, she'd handed me an opportunity. 2 days after I cleared out my office, my phone buzzed while I was refilling the bird feeder in my backyard. "Heard what happened. What the hell is going on at Surge Tony B?" Tony B was Tony Brenner, Director of Procurement at Hillside Projects, a legacy account I'd worked with for over a decade. I helped him clean up a botched composite install back in 2015 that nearly cost them $600K in penalties. After that, he didn't place a bulk order without calling me first. I texted back, "Change of direction. New VP wants younger, leaner, data-driven." Tony's reply came instantly. "New VP doesn't know jack about our needs. Let's grab lunch." Lunch turned into 3 more calls that week, then 5 more the next, then 14 within 3 weeks. Word got around fast. Most of the conversations went the same way. They're asking for data uploads into some new vendor platform. Nobody's answering the damn phone over there anymore. They changed our bulk pricing tier without warning. And always the same question: are you landing anywhere else? At first, I said I was exploring options, but behind the scenes, I was laying groundwork. I'd already spoken to Colin Vickers, the COO at Midcore Supply, a mid-sized player with national ambitions. We'd met at a trade show 3 years ago and hit it off over whiskey and our shared hatred of jargon-heavy strategy decks. At the time, Midcore didn't have the scale to compete for big contracts, but things had changed. Greg Collins said when I called you coming here would be like handing us the cheat codes. I told him I'd consider it on 2 conditions: total control over account transitions and client-facing teams. No non-compete violations. I wanted this done clean. He agreed to both. No poaching, I told him, but if people come to me, I'll serve them well. Back at Surge, Mira had no idea what was happening outside her dashboards. To her, I was just another overpaid dinosaur they'd phased out. I wasn't angry. I was focused. Every day I didn't react, didn't post some emotional farewell on LinkedIn, didn't retaliate. I gained ground. Because Mira didn't understand one critical thing: client loyalty isn't stored in CRMs. It's stored in people. My first official day at Midcore Supply felt surreal. No corporate fanfare, no onboarding slideshow about culture alignment, just a handshake from Colin, a set of keys to a corner office that still smelled like fresh paint, and a simple directive: do what you do best. Build something solid. We called it the Bridge Division, named for both the literal construction focus and the metaphorical purpose to bridge the gap between Midcore's aspirations and the clients I'd built relationships with over 20 years. By noon, I had my first email from Tony Brenner. Subject: RFP, Renewal, Hillside Projects. Body: Greg, we're putting our composite bid out early. Neo-Surge jumped our rates without warning. Let's talk. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wasn't breaching any agreement. Neo-Surge had raised rates, broken agreed-upon terms, and alienated the very accounts that made them strong. All I had to do was be better. We scheduled a call. I brought 2 of Midcore's engineers on to discuss turnaround times and value-add packaging. We talked delivery logistics, payment terms, site support. Tony signed a 1-year contract worth $2.3 million plus options to expand to their national sites next quarter. I didn't celebrate. I documented everything, triple-checked compliance with my exit agreement, and sat down with Midcore's legal counsel. We were clear. The next morning, Colin called me into his office, a rare move for a guy who preferred hallway decisions. He turned his monitor so I could see. It was an industry newsletter headline: Neo-Surge loses key legacy client to rising competitor underneath Hillside Projects awards. Midcore Supply, a multimillion-dollar materials contract, citing service continuity and trust. It didn't mention me by name, but insiders didn't need to guess. My phone buzzed all afternoon. Former colleagues, clients, competitors, and then a call from an unknown number. Gregory, Mira Crenshaw. Her voice was tight, measured, like she'd been practicing this call for hours. I assume you've seen the news, she said. I have, I replied casually, sipping coffee. She launched into a rehearsed speech about how they had expected some attrition and how change management always came with transition friction. I let her finish. Then she hit me with it. We'd like to formally remind you of your obligations under the non-solicitation clause. I leaned back in my chair. I haven't solicited anyone, Mira. I've just been answering my phone. Silence. Then, we underestimated your influence. I didn't respond. Because that was the moment it shifted from irritation to panic. She thought she was removing a relic. Instead, she'd kicked out the cornerstone. And the building was starting to lean. If there's one truth about this industry, it's this: clients talk. Fast. Especially when they smell fear. The morning after Mira's veiled legal threat, I got a call from Jordan Espinoza at Sentry Buildworks, another long-time account from my Neo-Surge days. Greg, are you hearing this garbage? Depends which garbage, I replied. Neo-Surge just tried to hike our pricing by 12%. Said something about margin realignment. No notice, no explanation. We've been with them for 9 years. It's like they forgot how loyalty works. I didn't need to pitch. Jordan was already pissed. By the end of the week, Sentry Buildworks signed a supply deal worth $1.9 million for their Nevada and Southern California operations. That made 2 major clients gone from Neo-Surge in under 10 days. Then came Danielle Shaw from Klein and Grayson Developers, A client so detail-oriented, she once made me redo a submittal package because the staples weren't aligned. She didn't call, she emailed. Subject: quick question. Greg. We've been approached by someone named Bryce from NeoSurge. Seems like your old role. Pushy guy, no context, no rapport. Just curious. Are you somewhere new? I waited 3 hours before responding, just enough to let the anticipation build. Danielle. I am. Mid-core supply. I'm leading a new division focused on core client continuity and hands-on support. We'd love to talk if you're considering change. Greg. She replied 6 minutes later. Thought so. I'll set something up with my team. In 2 weeks, 3 of my legacy clients had walked away from NeoSurge. Collectively, those accounts represented over $6 million in annual revenue. Not because I stole them, because they chose stability over slide decks. Meanwhile, Mira kept pushing the digital transformation narrative. Word inside the industry was she'd hired a Chicago-based branding firm to repackage NeoSurge's image. But you can't rebrand trust. You have to earn it. And Mira. She'd underestimated what happens when the people holding the relationships walk out the door. Then came the 4th call, and this one felt personal. Dave Wilkins, director of procurement for Castwell Engineering, left me a voicemail. Greg, we got some nonsense email from Bryce. New protocols, new PO approval system, all that crap. I know you're not at NeoSurge anymore, but if you've landed somewhere, call me. We want to move. That account was over $3.5 million annually. I'd walked Dave through 3 plant expansions, 2 emergency supply crises, and even helped him through his wife's surgery last year. This wasn't business. This was family. I called him that evening. We're switching, Greg. We want you. I gave him the proposal the next day. By the 3rd week, I'd personally overseen the onboarding of $11 million in accounts from NeoSurge into Midcore's bridge division. And all I'd done was pick up the phone. By the end of the 3rd week, Mira wasn't just losing accounts. She was losing control. On Tuesday morning, I got a call from Jared, a former project coordinator at NeoSurge, who now worked in their data ops team. Quiet guy, smart. The kind who saw everything but never spoke up. Greg. Off the record. Okay, always, I said. The board's pissed. They're looking at Q1 projections and it's a bloodbath. They approved Mira's restructuring plan thinking it'd reduce costs, but she never told them it would nuke $10 million in revenue. I leaned back in my chair. That sounded like Mira. Slicing heads to show she's a reformer, only now the math was turning on her. They brought in a consulting firm. External audit. Mira's spinning it like a strategic review, but everyone knows it's an inquisition. Any mention of mid-core only in whispers. But you're in the slides. There's a client attrition attribution chart. Your name's on it. You and Bryce's name, but not in the same column. That made me pause. What does that mean? Let's just say the board's noticing who's gaining and who's flailing. The next day I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a printed copy of Mira's internal performance report to the board. Jared, I assumed. My former client accounts were color-coded. Red for at risk. Black for already lost. Nearly all of them were black. At the top, in bold Strategic Client Migration Plan Contingency Phase 3. Required. That's corporate for we're screwed. At the bottom of the report was a note in Mira's handwriting. We need to contain this narrative before Q2 earnings. I sat there for a full minute. Not with glee, not even with vindication, just clarity. The empire she'd built on process and posturing was collapsing under the weight of real relationships. And for all her talk about culture, Mira forgot that trust is culture. Consistency is culture. People are culture. Neo-Surge wasn't failing because I left. It was failing because it didn't understand what actually held it together. The email came on a Thursday morning, no subject line, just Mira's name in the sender box. Greg. I think it's time we talked. Can you meet me tomorrow, 11 a.m. at the Meridian Cafe off the record? Just us. M. I almost laughed. The same woman who had walked me out with 2 security guards was now asking for a coffee meeting. I forwarded the message to Lila, my attorney. Her reply came back instantly. Meet her. But don't go alone. The next day, I arrived 5 minutes early. Mira was already there, of course, dressed in navy silk, and too much perfume sipping a cappuccino, like nothing was unraveling behind her. Greg, she said, standing to shake my hand like we were old colleagues catching up. I didn't smile. Mira? We sat. She skipped pleasantries. Let me be blunt. We both know the situation isn't great. I've made some decisions that were necessary, but maybe executed too quickly. Cutting the guy who managed 60% of your top accounts without a transition plan, I asked. Yeah. Bold move, she waved a hand. Let's not relitigate. The point is, I'm offering a path back. I blinked. Excuse me, return to Neo-Surge. New title, VP of Strategic Accounts. We give you your core book back. You rebuild trust with the accounts we've had turbulence with. You mean the ones that followed me? Her jaw clenched for a beat. We're willing to offer a performance-based incentive package. Equity, too. You'd report directly to me, but with autonomy. It was so surreal I nearly choked on my coffee. You fired me for not fitting your vision, Mira. Now you want me back. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. The board wants stability. They've lost confidence in the transition numbers. Bringing you back shows continuity, reassures investors. You're not just an asset, Greg, you're a symbol of what worked. There it was. Not remorse, not respect, just damage control. Do you want me, I asked, or do you just want to stop the bleeding? She hesitated. Does it matter? I stood. It does to me. Her face twitched, something between contempt and desperation. This is your one chance, Greg. Don't mistake pride for strategy. I leaned down, palms on the table. You know what the clients keep telling me? That you never listened. That you replaced trust with dashboards. That you forgot this business isn't just about scale, it's about people. You're bleeding because you fired the soul of the company. I straightened. And you didn't just fire me, Mira. You lit a match in a dry forest. Now you're trying to sell me the ashes. Then I walked out. I never looked back. 3 weeks after that meeting with Mira, the first article dropped. Neo-Surge faces client exodus. Amid internal shakeups. It was on the front page of Channel Build Weekly, a trade publication every major contractor and distributor subscribed to. The article quoted 2 anonymous sources within the company, both of whom confirmed that at least 5 of Neo-Surge's top 15 clients had already shifted business elsewhere, most notably to my new firm, CoreAxis. It mentioned high-level departures revenue instability and a damning quote from a regional director. You can't algorithm your way through trust. I didn't leak the story. I didn't need to. The industry was already buzzing. By now, 9 of my former accounts had signed with CoreAxis. Not because I undercut NeoSurge, but because I showed up personally. Because I made their headaches my responsibility like I always had. I didn't build a flashy CRM. I didn't talk in percentages and PowerPoints. I just made sure their deliveries were early and their costs stayed sane. At the end of every call, they all said some version of "Greg, glad you're still in the game." That week, the calls started shifting tone. First from recruiters asking if CoreAxis had room for more defectors. Then from 2 former NeoSurge salespeople, both of whom had quietly been let go after failing to retain transitioned clients. "I didn't understand what you meant about relationships, man," one of them admitted. "Now I get it. They don't return my calls, but they'd pick up for you in 2 rings. Meanwhile, CoreAxis's internal dashboard was glowing. In less than 90 days, we'd captured $11.4 million in new annualized revenue, and that was just what we could confirm on paper. My team, small but hungry, was thriving. Most of them were people I'd mentored or crossed paths with over 2 decades. And unlike at NeoSurge, no one here was chasing buzzwords or trying to climb over each other for credit. We were builders. Quietly, ruthlessly efficient builders. One evening, as I was locking up my phone, buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in over a year. Victor Dunn, one of NeoSurge's original investors and board members. "Greg," he said, sounding drained, "I owe you an apology." I waited. "We signed off on Myra's vision because we thought the business had matured past you. We were wrong." He paused. "Do you remember the last thing you told me at that leadership retreat in Napa I did? You don't scale trust. You earn it, over and over." He sighed. "We forgot that. Mira's stepping down at the end of the quarter. The company's bleeding." I said nothing. "We're looking for someone to stabilize things, realign with what worked. CoreAxis is clearly doing something right. Any chance you'd consider a conversation?" I didn't laugh. But I sure as hell didn't say yes. "Victor," I said evenly, "some foundations can't be rebuilt. You had your shot. Now I'm building something new." There was silence on the other end. Then a quiet, "Good luck, Greg." "I don't need luck," I said. "I've got trust." 6 months after I walked out of NeoSurge with nothing but a clean desk and a quiet mind, CoreAxis had grown into a full-blown contender. Not just a new player, but the player to watch. We had 14 staff. 11 of them came from companies where they'd been overlooked, written off, or micromanaged into submission. But here they were thriving, because I gave them room to breathe, and a mission that meant something. We didn't have a culture committee or a digital transformation pipeline. We had client wins, repeat orders, contracts signed with handshakes and quiet nods over coffee. One Friday afternoon, we landed Vanderline Group, the biggest architectural supply firm on the West Coast. They'd never worked with anyone outside their legacy vendor in 22 years. Until now. It wasn't because we had the lowest price, we didn't. It wasn't because our pitch deck was prettier, we didn't use one. It was because I showed up when their warehouse caught fire, unannounced, with a truckload of emergency supply and 3 crew members to unload it. We helped them get back online in 48 hours, while their former vendor sent a sympathy email. When the deal closed, Vanderline's COO called me personally. "You don't need to sell us anything, Greg. You already proved it when there wasn't a dollar on the line. That deal alone would add $6 million in recurring revenue over 2 years." That night I poured a bourbon, just one, and sat in the same backyard, where not long ago I'd felt like my career was ending. My wife stepped out, leaned on the railing, watching me with that half smile she'd used for 20 years. "You still working?" she asked. "Not really," I said. "Just thinking." "About legacy," I said. "About what we leave behind when they stop printing business cards with our names on them." She walked over, sat beside me. "You've always built things that lasted, Greg. People. Trust. That's the real legacy. She was right. And I wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I walked into our new office space, triple the size, filled with sunlight and clean drywall smell. On the glass wall outside the conference room, a sign had just been installed in brushed steel: CoreAxis Partners, built on trust, delivered with purpose. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. Later that day, my assistant handed me a thick envelope. From NeoSurge, she said. Inside was a formal acquisition proposal. A buyout. Clean, lucrative, 7 figures. At the bottom, a handwritten note. You were right. Relationships don't scale. They follow the people who earn them. VD. I smiled. Then I fed the letter into the shredder. That evening, as the sun dipped low, I sat with my daughter on our porch swing. She was home from college, studying organizational psychology of all things. Your company's kind of a legend on campus, she said, teasing. They say you brought down a whole corporate structure just by doing your job better. I shook my head. I didn't bring anyone down, I said. They collapsed under the weight of what they forgot, which is that people aren't metrics. They're relationships. And when you treat them that way, they don't just buy from you, they follow you. She smiled, thoughtful. I might want to intern there next summer. We'd be lucky to have you, I said. She didn't know it yet, but I was already drafting a succession plan. Not because I was stepping down, but because I wanted to build something she could one day carry forward if she chose to. Because that's what legacy really is. Not just what you build, but who you build it for.